Hello my beautiful besties. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kelly. Stick around. For today's video, we're going to be doing my August reading wrap up. I cannot believe another month has come and gone. Absolutely crazy to me that we are in September now. This month is just going way too fast and I needed to slow down a little. Anyways, I thought we would start adding my monthly statistics in the beginning of each wrap-up video. I have my handy dandy reading journal here. So I read 9 books in the month of August, 3,434 pages. We read 2 books physically, 5 ebooks, 2 audiobooks, and 1 reread. So yeah, those are my monthly statistics. I read all romance and we had 1 graphic novel. I need to get back in my fantasy era. Fantasy era incoming, fall time. Come please soon. I need the fall. I'm ready for you. Me telling time to slow down and then also wanting to rush time to get to fall. Make it make sense, babe. Make it make sense. Okay. I also have my ratings on my phone, so if you see me looking down, sometimes I just forget what I rated books. We started out the month of August with such a banger. So I started out the month with Caught Up by Liz Tomford. This is the 3rd book in the Windy City series. The first book is Mile High, and that is following Xander and Stevie. The second book is The Right Move, which is Indy and Ryan Shea. And then this book you are following Kai and Miller. I took such a long time to read this book and I'm honestly so mad at myself for it, but I kept saying no one's gonna top Ryan Shea and Indy, like no one, until I read this book. This book, I cannot believe I'm saying these words out loud, but this book topped The Right Move for me. I think this is my favorite sports romance book that I've ever read. 5 stars, 6 stars. This book was everything to me and more. I laughed, I cried, I was swooning over the romance, I was angry, I was sad, I was just happy, I was everything, you guys. So, you're following Kai. He is a baseball player, and Miller, she is a chef, and Miller ends up taking a little bit of a break from her job, and she decides to go back and visit her father, and her father is Kai's baseball coach. And Kai is a single dad. He is looking for a nanny. Every time he hires a nanny, he ends up firing them. He can never keep one. So Miller's dad, I'm pretty sure his name was Monty, if I remember correctly. But he ends up telling Miller, like, you should be Kai's nanny. So she does. And just the family they create. Let me tell you, Kai and Miller's banter was everything to me. I was eating it up. So good. And Max is Kai's son. He is the cutest boy ever, and just the found family of this whole entire series is just everything to me and more. I tabbed the hell out of this book. Really loved it, and I'm super excited to read the 4th book, which is Play Along, and that follows Isaiah, which is Kai's brother. 6 stars. One of my favorite reads of the whole entire year. Ugh. Just thinking about this book, I have not been able to stop thinking about the characters since I finished it in the beginning of the month. And if that tells you anything about how much I loved it, please go read this whole entire series. It's worth it. They are all interconnected standalones, so you don't necessarily have to read them all. But to capture the found family, you definitely should. 5 stars. The second book I read was The Pucking Wrong Number by C.R. Jane. This is a dark hockey romance, and I gave this book 2 stars, you guys. I did not like it whatsoever, but you are following Lincoln and Monroe. Lincoln is a hockey player, and he ends up sending a text to the wrong number, which is Monroe, and I don't want to say anything else, but there was just some things that Lincoln did that I did not like, and he kind of gave me the ick, I'm not gonna lie. But yeah, 2 stars. Wasn't my favorite. It is a dark romance, so definitely check your trigger warnings if you are going to read this. It just wasn't for me. Next, I read Mrs. Nash's Ashes by Sarah Adler. You are following Millicent, and she has to take Mrs. Nash's ashes to her long lost lover, and she ends up going to the airport, and her flight gets canceled. I forget why, but yeah, her flight gets canceled, and she ends up having to road trip with an acquaintance that she hasn't spoken to in a while and she doesn't really like. So it's like enemies or dislike to lovers in a way, but I cared more about Mrs. Nash's romance than I did about Millicent's romance. So I gave this book 3 stars, I believe. Yeah, 3 stars. This book did make me tear up at the end, I'm not gonna lie. I had to like close the book for a minute because the ending just got really emotional, and I feel like Sarah Adler did such a great way of like talking about grief. I really liked the way that she wrote about it. So yeah, 3 stars. It was a very cute read. Like I said, I just wasn't that interested in the female main character's relationship and their connection. I just didn't really see that. So 3 stars. Next, I did a reread of one of my favorite books ever, which is Reckless by Elsie Silver. This book follows Winter and Theo. This is the 4th book in the Chestnut Spring series. And of course, this book was a 5 stars. I love it so much. Winter and Theo are probably one of my favorite book couples ever. Oh, just their banter and the things that Theo did for Winter. Theo is the epitome of if he wanted to, he would. Oh, acts of service king, and I loved Winter. I really relate to her in so many ways. So 5 stars. I had the best time rereading that, and I've actually been wanting to reread that book for a while, so I'm really glad that I got around to it this month. Next, I read This Could Be Us by Kennedy Ryan. This is the 2nd book. I'm pretty sure it's an interconnected series, like you don't have to read them in order. But the 1st book I read a couple months ago, and I really loved that book. I didn't like this one as much as the 1st one, but I still really enjoyed it. But you are following Soledad, and she ends up getting divorced, and she's trying to pick up the pieces of her life. And I think this book was so much more about self-love to me than it was about the romance going on. So I gave this book 3.75 stars just because I feel like at some point we stopped going on like her self-love journey, and then it was more about the romance, which I know it's a romance book. Like I get that's the point. But I don't know, I just like the beginning with like her going through like her self-love journey, I really liked that. And then towards the end, I feel like we lost all that we started out doing in the beginning, if that makes sense. So yeah, 3.75. I really did enjoy this though. I liked both characters a lot. I just didn't like this one as much as the 1st book. Next, I read Scarred by Emily McIntyre. This is a Lion King retelling, and it is a part of an interconnected standalone series. The 1st book is Hooked. I think I read that last year, I think it was last year. And I didn't really like that book. I liked this one so much better. And I think the next one is like a witch, like Wicked Witch retelling, I think. I'm not sure, but I don't own that one. I only own the first 2 books. Let me know if you've read the other books, if I should continue. But yeah, I really liked this book. I gave it 4 stars. And it is a dark romance, so check up your trigger warnings. Also, I think if you want to like dip your toes into dark romance, I think that this series is the perfect place to start. It's not that dark, so I recommend it. Next, we read Summer Romance by Annabelle Monaghan. I always feel like I'm saying her last name wrong, but I have read every single book that she has come out with so far, and I've loved all of them except for one, but I've loved her writing in every single book. She gives me such Emily Henry vibes. Like, I feel like their writing is very similar. Like, I feel like her books are so much more than the romance. And don't let this cover fool you. Like, this book made me tear up several times. I just really loved this book. But you are following Allie, and she ends up getting divorced, and she's having a rough time. She's a single mom with 3 kids. And she ends up going to a dog park, and she ends up meeting, I think his name is Ethan, I believe. Yes, his name is Ethan. She ends up having this little meet cute with Ethan. Her dog actually pees on him, and they end up saying, ooh, let's have a little summer thing, like just for the summer, like a summer romance, the title. And it goes from there. I love her writing. I love her books so much, and I'm so excited for her to come out with more books because, like I said, I just love her writing. And I gave this book 4.25 stars, and there are some quotes in here that I really love. Let me see if I can find one to read to you. Here we go. You get a dog and you know two things. You're going to fall in love with it and it's going to die one day. You knowingly walk headfirst into heartbreak. That's the basic madness of dog ownership. Now, I know I don't have a dog myself, but it reminded me of cats because I lost my other cat, Mickey, in July. So, I don't know. That really hit me hard when I read that quote. So, I really liked this book. 4.25 stars. Next, I have been reading the Heartstopper series very slowly. I've been doing one book a month. I love Nick and Charlie. This book definitely was more deep than the other ones. It focused on mental health, and I loved the way it was done. I flew through this, of course, because it's a graphic novel, and I just love Nick and Charlie so much. I cannot believe I only have one left. I think there's another one that's coming out maybe like next year or something like that, but I can't believe I'm going to be finished with all the ones that are out next month. It's crazy. Please go read this. Even if you've never read a graphic novel before, I feel like I've probably read like one in like high school or like middle school, but I've never read like graphic novels on my own, and I really love this series. I love Nick and Charlie so much. So I think I would give that 5 stars because this book just made me love them even more, and I got to see more of like their deep relationship. So loved it. Last but definitely not least, question mark, I still have mixed feelings on this book, but I read The Ritual by Chantal Tessier. Is that how you say her name? I might be butchering that, but this is a dark romance. Please, if you're going to read this book, check your trigger warnings, along with all the other dark romances that I read, but especially this one. This book was so dark, and let me tell you, I feel like this book had so many different plots and stuff going on that I can't even explain to you what this book is about without like spoiling. So if you want to read the back or like the synopsis on like Goodreads, you could do that, but I just don't know how to describe like the premise of this because there was just so much that went on in this, and this book was very long, like 500 pages. I don't know how I feel about this. Was I entertained? Yes. Was this book toxic? Yeah, but it's a dark romance, you know what I mean? So if I was to give a rating, I'd say a 4-star in the dark romance rating, like on a dark romance scale rating, because I feel like, in my opinion, there's a difference of like your ratings with like different books to where like dark romance lies, if that makes sense. I don't know, but I did have a good time reading this book. I don't have any of the other books. I think there's like 4 books in this series. I don't own any of them, but they are on Kindle Unlimited, so I might read the next book. I don't know yet. But I did have a good time reading this book, and I did really like the female main character, and I did like the MMC as well. So I'm still conflicted on my thoughts on this. But yeah, those are all of the 9 books that I read in the month of August. My thoughts on all of these were all over the place, so I apologize for that, but that's what you get yourself into when you watch one of my videos. So yeah, I love you guys so much, and I will see you guys really soon in my next video. Bye guys!